Thank you, Ahmed, for that interesting presentation. If the audience has any questions, I'm pretty sure they'll come find you during our networking breaks. Moving on, we have a very detailed presentation on identifying data points within your CX journey, which will showcase how an organization can optimally navigate between non-linear customer journeys. For that, I would like to call on stage Hazem El Zayat, Chief Experience Officer MENA for Memac Ogilvy. Please welcome him with a huge round of applause. He has led projects all across areas of digital mix, including web platforms, mobile solutions, social media, content, performance marketing, search engine optimization, marketing, paid digital advertising, and programmatic data and analytics, making him not only an advocate, but also a hands-on practitioner of omni-channel marketing. Hazem, over to you.
Thank you very much. So luckily, I'm not the only guy between you and lunch, so if I do ramble on a bit, there's somebody else to blame. Good start. So if we can get to slide. I can sing. Thank you. I could try to entertain you differently if that helps. All right, we're getting there. Certainly getting there, absolutely, wonderful. Okay, so we're going to be talking about data and the journey and the importance of data, and a lot of people talk now about, oops, sorry, can you go back and can we get volume, please? So we're going to be talking about data and the journey and the importance of data and how to build sort of data items into your journey and all this lovely stuff that correlates very nicely with many of the keywords that all the fantastic speakers in the panels have brought up earlier this morning. Okay, so can we just go to the slide, please. Can we go to the first? There we go. Fine. Okay, great. Wonderful. So we're talking about data and the journey. We're going to start with a video that would hopefully contextualize all of this for you. So let's go.
Target's been neutralized. I'm heading to the hotel. Checking into the penthouse. The name's Hunter.
Certainly, Mr. Hunter. I have your reservation right here. Wait, did you say Hunter?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't have a Hunter.
But you emailed the confirmation to my watch.
Well, marketing handles emails. Oh, I have a Hanson.
No, it's Hunter.
Hunter.
I picked my room on your app.
Oh, we have so many apps, ain't there?
But I'm a platinum member. And I even have a promotion from your website.
Promotions are on a different system, but I do have a single on the ground floor, Mr. Hanson.
It's Hunter. My name is Hunter.
So hopefully that sort of identifies with some people in some capacities. I don't work for Adobe. I don't sell Adobe. I'm just giving them credit for the video, but yes, they do a fantastic job at demonstrating these things. So this is the experience that some customers obviously have with some of these sort of friction points and concerns that happen when these sort of situations come in. Now, the last few years have obviously accelerated the world when it comes to digital and digital transformation and so on. So the pandemic, we say, drove between 7 and 10 years leap in brands' digital transformation or adoption of digital channels or what have you. Might be 7 to 10, might be 10 to 15. We can debate that for a long time. The digital share of customer interaction has grown obviously significantly in the last few years. And we've talked about cookieless over the panels and what have you, but the cookieless future is coming. Somebody on the panel said, does anybody know exactly when? We're all sort of asking that question, but it's coming and we've got to be prepared and we've got to do something about it. So, okay. The reason I'm going to keep you longer is because I can't click through to the slides for some reason, but let's see if we can get this moving faster. There we go. So, to the point again made by several people in several of the conversations already, given the acceleration that has happened over the past few years, the customer now has more power than ever to decide when they want to talk to you, how they want to talk to you, where they want to talk to you, what you want to tell them, what they want to hear from you. So basically everything is happening on their terms, and you've got to be able to accept that and deliver a strategy and deliver content and messaging and what have you that actually satisfies them accordingly. So you have to end up mattering, or brands have to end up mattering to the individual consumer. Right, so how do we do that? We believe there are 4 dynamics that are hitting this post-pandemic world. And if we skim through them, absolutely. So place, pace, purpose, and privacy. So place is all about channel and all about sort of what channels do customers want to talk to you on, what channels do they want to hear from you on, where do you reach them, and so on. I'm having a really hard time with the slides, I'm sorry. There we go. So multiple conversations across multiple devices, and we can't really be limited by what is potentially an offline channel like SMS and email actually are viewed these days, or are regarded these days. If we switch on to pace, pace basically covers the right. So pace covers the number of interactions that actually have to happen. So the number of touch points or the number of interactions that happen between buying a ticket around the world or buying a chocolate bar or what have you could vary massively between sort of 20 touch points to 500. And 90% of consumers expect interactions to actually happen across channels. So think of your own interactions when you're booking a ticket, when you're buying a piece of furniture, when you're buying a shirt or what have you. You hop between devices, you hop between channels, and so on. And hence, near time isn't timely enough anymore. Sorry, we've got to be much more real time. Comes to purpose, customers really need that much greater emotional connection with brands. There's enough research that demonstrates that the more emotional connection you can drive with your customers, the more you grow revenue and profit, up to 2 and 2.5 times revenue and profit actually. And consumers make very fast associations between brands and brands with purpose and brands with just functional attributes, basically. So moving away from a sort of transactional relation to a much more emotional relationship becomes very important. And then very, very importantly these days is privacy, right? So we've all had that conversation about, I was talking to my friend and I said something about a certain product or a certain brand, and then I found it following me on Facebook and on Instagram and what have you. So where does privacy come into play, and what do we really do about collecting and activating and leveraging and nurturing and so on first-party data? The customer expects it these days. They need to feel that they're not just known, but they're actually valued and respected as well, and that you're using that data obviously in a way that is courteous of their expectations. So what does all of this mean, and why do we focus on first-party data? So first-party data is important because obviously it's data that you collect about your consumers during the interactions that they have with your brand directly. So this is not you going out to buying a set of information or research or what have you. It's real interactions from real customers on your devices, on your channels, and so on. Again, the pandemic is to blame and has caused a lot of businesses to see that digital channels and products are the only means to engage with customers. The number of brands that have spoken to us over the last 3 years, and particularly obviously during lockdown, and oh my God, I'm not selling, I was not on e-commerce, what am I gonna do? Everything from the local small little grocery store all the way to car dealerships have had that conversation. And the more or a brand that leverages first-party data better can be identified with that level of personalization that they deliver in their customer interactions, which leads us to this personalization maturity curve, as we like to call it. So it's everything and anything from going to mass marketing or no personalization all the way up to predictive personalization. And we heard from several people around artificial intelligence and machine learning and so on, and the number of tools available out there that enable this sort of conversation. And apologies, the previous slide was just trying to hint that a big chunk of brands seem to be still very much stuck in the mass marketing or segment-based personalization at best. What do these elements really mean? Probably nothing that is surprising. Mass marketing is a one-size-fits-all. It's very much what a lot of brands really do these days. Segments-based is a little bit more about being one-to-many, so I can sub-segment my customers into, based on geography or age or what have you. Customer behavior personalization is a bit more one-to-some, so it's a little bit more on the sub-segment level, and it's a bit more about predictive experimentation and retargeting tactics and all that. And then finally, predictive personalization, which we've sort of covered and others have covered already in different capacities. I'm trying to make sure that I really don't run on time. Apologies for the pace. So what do we really conclude from all of this? When we talk data and we talk, again, comms and marketing and advertising and what have you, and so on, the word CRM obviously pops up a lot. And these days we talk CRM, CX, et cetera, et cetera. But it's really time to move CRM beyond the inbox. So we say CRM and people sort of automatically hear email. We really need to sort of move outside the inbox or move beyond the inbox. We need to orchestrate personal and engaging interactions in real time across channels. So near time is not good enough. It really has to be instantaneous. It really has to be real time. And again, purpose creates a strong, enduring mental connection. So brands with purpose resonate with customers much more. And the customer needs to not be just known, but respected and valued. So really what we talk about here is relationship design as opposed to the traditional definition of CRM. So more than ever, customers don't want to be managed anymore. This whole notion of relationship management needs to be over. They have choices, they have personal needs, and they want to feel that the engagement is basically intuitive and is reciprocal. It's a two-way engagement. And it needs to be, the relationship needs to be designed jointly between the brand and the customer at an individual level, one more time, as opposed to the one-size-fits-all. So, what does that mean? We move away from one-dimensional customer understanding to much more 4D evolution of understanding customer and customer data. Instead of sort of doing things to customers, it's about doing things with customers. From low value for consumers in comms to much more relevant value in every interaction. From personalization, which, if we're being honest, some brands are still catching up with, to much more deeply personal. From value created for the business to mutual value relationship creation, and from short-term transactional sales metrics to much more holistic relationships that are driven around value and advocacy and word of mouth and what have you and so on. And it's all orchestrated with data, no surprise. What are we really throwing at and what are we trying to really achieve is this, right? So we want to make sure that we're consistently delivering the right message to the right person, the right time, the right place, on the right device, at every step of the journey. So this is not just at the tail end of loyalty and having done the first transaction. No, it's even at the very beginning in the acquisition stage. This still becomes very, very valid as well. So this all influences one key premise, which is obviously the subject at hand for this entire two-day event and many of the speakers already, is essentially customer experience, because that's what customers decide whether they continue doing business or not with a particular brand. And today, 89% of companies compete on the basis of CX or customer experience, up from 36% in 2010. And while 80% of companies believe they deliver superior experiences, only 8% of customers do agree. So how do we really deliver great experiences? And I deliberately here say great experiences as opposed to just great customer experience. Great experiences across all the interactions that customers have with a brand. It's about two things. It's about making consumers more valuable to the brand, but it's reciprocal, as we already said. So it's also about making brands more valuable to the consumer. So how do we do that? We need to, again, create these exceptional experiences and build emotional connections between customers and brands. It's about creating a value exchange. It's about creating a mutual reason for that communication to exist and for that value exchange to actually happen. So experiences fuel that business growth and drive the impact. Emotional connections actually bring them to life in content, in messaging, in touchpoint experiences, and so on and so forth. And the way to do this is to make sure that we're actually intersecting and connecting a number of different elements together, and many of what again, previous speakers already talked about. So how do we intersect understanding of the customer with all the data and technology at hand, with brand, and continue to drive business value? So when we do that, and I'm just going to flip through slides to capitalize on time. So if you bridge or if you intersect these four angles together between creating a unique brand experience, using customer data to create rich human or to uncover rich human behavioral understanding, leveraging data and technology to deliver on these two scenarios. And I deliberately bring data and technology as a third layer, not at a first layer, because I am very, very strongly a believer in you've got to define the brand experience, you've got to define the customer experience that you want to deliver, then find the technology that's most capable of delivering on it, as opposed to the other way around. And obviously you want to drive business value. When these four intersect, it's not just impact, it's impact magnified, it's impact squared, tripled, however you want to see it. It's actually significant. I'm getting WhatsApp message. So how do we build unique brand experiences? So no rocket science. Which matter to the individual person. We've got to always remember that they are an individual, different needs, different interests, different hobbies, different motivations, etc. They're always in a context and they're always on a journey. And how do we figure these things out without any rocket science? They are typical tools and capabilities that we're very well familiar of. So personas help you define your audience, help you define their motivations and what they want to achieve from the brand and all the sort of behavioral elements and what have you. Consumer decision journeys actually help you identify the moments that matter in the journey for every single segment of customers. So positive fuel, negative fuel, etc., etc. But the journey is no longer linear. So we're hopping again across devices. We're hopping across different stages of the journey. We actually sort of get very close to conversion and flick back to consideration and awareness in some capacity and compare and go to aggregators and all of these things. So it's not that linear, simple journey that it used to be in the past. And the rules have changed. We've moved from a world where there was media scarcity and attention abundance to much more media abundance and attention scarcity. We get overwhelmed and overhounded with too many messages from too many people across the day. So how do we stand out by being more relevant to customers is the key question. And this gentleman here emphasizes that point and talks to, again, if we go back to the idea of mass personalization versus individualization and so on. He's talking to that point over here. Oh, sorry, can we get volume again, please?
When it comes to communication, this is the first time in history where at scale, you can really have a one-to-one communication, two-way street with a consumer. The old model of what I call push advertising, where you develop a product and content, you then try to select media that roughly hit that consumer, and then you hope the message arrives and that consumer will act in a certain way. That model is fading fast. What you can do these days, once you have a consumer's phone number or email address, you can really target specifically to the needs of that person. You can have, at scale, in an automated yet personal way, a conversation, and you have a much, much better hit rate than any time before.
This is actually 2017, so he's talking to email and phone numbers only. Obviously, there's hundreds of other data points, but this is 2017. So he's talking about this in 5 years ago, pre-pandemic, and what they're doing. And what's interesting about this talk is this conversation happened at an investor relations event. So he's not talking to marketeers, he's not talking to sales, he's not talking to people who do this on a daily basis. He's talking to folks that go out and advise people on buying Nestle stock and saying one of the reasons the company has grown and the stock is performing is that marketing strategy or that communication strategy that is actually building on individual messaging. And the other reason behind the growth is because it drives media spend efficiency. And I'll show you in a couple of slides a few sort of interesting results around that. It's conscious of time again. I'm told this one syncs better, but no. There we go. There's a number of brands that have raised expectations and changed customer expectations. So all of these brands here that we use on a very regular basis have made us very well aware that there's a minimum expectation that we have that needs to be met, right? So Uber has set the expectation for how seamless an experience could be. Amazon, arguably the godfathers of personalization have set the expectation that a brand should be able to predict what we want. Spotify, music identifies you, or music discovers you as opposed to the other way around. Netflix, personalization and on-demand and what have you, and so on and so forth. And many, many others, and some good examples from within the region, obviously, as well, not necessarily just the global contributors. And the reason we bring those up is, again, what this lady here tells us is because that expectation from brands becomes a minimum expectation, right? The fact that you're talking to, that you are a telco, or you are an airline, or you are a bank, or what have you, does not mean that your customers compare you only to the bank next door or to the telco next door. They compare you to where they have a great experience. So your telco, you're a telco, your clients are comparing you to the airline clients are comparing you to a hotel, and so on and so forth, because it's just about the good experience as opposed to the brand. Well, the brand experience obviously as well, but the good experience plays very strongly to what the expectation from any brand becomes. And here's a study from BCG that talks to banking, no picking on banks in particular in this case, but this is a study from the BCG Retail Banking Advisory Survey, which talks to what customers want their bank, how customers want their banks to behave. They want their banks to be more like Amazon, like a personal shopper, like a supermarket, like a gym. And who would have thought? You compare a bank to a gym. It's an experience thing. It's not about the actual product. It's an overall experience that we have. And speaking to banks, this is a great example.
Everybody on the ground! This is a robbery! Don't move! Hey! Get down and stay down! Don't move! The money! Money! Open the phone!
Mr. Johnson? Eric Johnson?
How does she know your name? I don't know.
Your mobile app pinged us when you walked in. Looks like you were on our website and thinking about buying a house.
You moving out, man? I need my space.
Eric, you may think you can't afford a new home, but we have some amazing new rates. I could text them to you.
Oh, those are fantastic.
And Mr. Davis?
Yeah, it's me.
Did you click on one of our emails about consolidating your student loans?
Maybe. Tim! What's the matter with you?
Oh, well, we can help you with that too.
Hey, what are you doing? This is a robbery, remember? We gotta go. Come on. Can I lock those rates in on the app?
Well, of course you can, sugar.
Oh, great.
Another wonderful example from the Adobe folks, again, does very well, and I can see the smiles. I'm glad this one always gets attention and interest from people. So it's the reality, right? It's what we expect. We want people to identify us. We want to walk in and know how to deal with things and so on. Not in a creepy way, but obviously in the right way. So how do we do that? We operationalize data through 3 layers, what we call prioritization, personalization, and precision. The who, the how, and the what, and the when and the where, basically. So again, just scrolling through very quickly because I'm very conscious of time. I apologize. So that is a framework to operationalize data. And let's look at some examples. So this is what we've done for Accor. I wonder if there's anybody from the brand in the room, but obviously can be applied to the hotel industry. So when Accor came to us, they said, we've got an issue. Customers are loyal. They stay at the Novotel Al Barsha, for example. I'm just giving a hypothetical example. Every time they come to Dubai, they stay at the Novotel. A customer, every time they comes to Dubai, stays at Novotel. Now, if that same customer comes to Dubai, doesn't find availability at the Novotel Al Barsha, they go to another hotel that is very likely not a part of the Accor brand. What do we do about it? And we want to drive that awareness of that there's a whole lot of other alternatives that can fit what they're looking for. What do we do about it? And they actually said, we understand that the answer is in talking to those individual customers because we know what they're looking for in their stay, but we don't have the data. And we were like, hang on, how do you not have the data? You know how frequently they travel, where they travel to, how long they stay, mid-tier, low-tier, high-tier hotels. Do they use the gym? Do they consume minibar? Do they eat at the hotel? Operationalize all that data and you've got a winner. So what did we do? We defined all that data points for them so you can see things like earning, burning, amount of stay, loyalty, share, wallet, and we defined personas and we defined all of the data segments around it to land on a very simple premise of sending an email to customers sending an email to customers post-stay that actually says, if I can get there, there, okay, let's one more time. So sending an email to customers post-stay that basically says, if you ever need another hotel while you're in London, oh, come on, there we go. So what are we doing? We triggered an email based on a recent experience, which is a hotel stay, 2 days after that experience. And then there was some personalization tactics, obviously. Where did they stay? What sort of earning behavior did they display? What's their member status, obviously, because we need to identify them and show them that we know who they are and so on. And then sent them an email that said, if you ever need a different hotel in London, obviously, assuming the person was in London, here's another 3 alternatives that are close within proximity of where you typically stay, obviously, because I probably stay close to my office or what have you. And if you choose to try one of them, here's also a free drink at the bar or a free meal at the restaurant or what have you to, push them to go and visit that hotel. Now, how do we do this at scale? Simply, you've got a template. An email template is an email template, header, footer, body content. All of the content elements get defined based on the data trigger. So I stayed in London, you stayed in Dubai, somebody else stayed in Paris. I'm a gold tier, you're a silver tier, somebody else is a blue tier or what have you. And then if you actually just make the algorithm work for you, you can generate variants of that email on the fly. So that email is triggered automatically 3 days after the stay, and it actually just delivers. Similarly, in a different industry, and we did the same thing for Starbucks. So Starbucks is obviously one of those brands where typically, you drive by or walk through to the same Starbucks branch or outlet on the way to work. You order the same drink, you collect the same number of stars, then you might pop in again for a mid-afternoon coffee or lunch or what have you. They said people are collecting stars, they're not using them, they're not seeing the benefit that they're getting from spending their money with Starbucks and collecting stars. So we did the same thing. Another simple email template, header, footer, body content, depending on what drink I consume, how many stars I've owned, when an offer is activated, etc., etc. We generated hundreds of variants of those emails on the fly. So it became a very simple journey of, if you've got a new variant, if you've got a new promotion, if you've got a new offer, all you got to do is add another layer to the rule engine that says, trigger this to these people based on that action, and it goes out. Now, these are both examples that are based on email, but there's no reason why this template can't be a display banner, a social media content post, what have you, an SMS, text message, WhatsApp message, whatever you want it to be, and then you trigger depending on the action you want to take, and you could incrementally trigger, which is the example that we're going to give next. So, apologies again for time. And this is some of the impact from the Starbucks world. So 11% increase in interactions, 10% in open rates, 15% in offer conversion, but this one's even stronger. So apologies, but the brand is withheld for confidentiality reasons, but this is one of the larger GCC retailers that we're all very well familiar with. We are actually looking at the totality of the experience in dealing with the brand or in the brand experience overall, so online, offline, everything. We're covering the whole 9 yards from a customer experience perspective. So real world, brick and mortar, everything. We're connecting all sorts of data around the customer, sales, subscription, emotional behavior, device, location, whatever you want. We're doing the whole shebang, and we're delivering this from a CX strategy perspective. We ran a couple of pilots to manually demonstrate that when we do all of this and we do it automatically, it will actually yield some results. So the fine print will not be visible, but that's absolutely fine. So going back to our idea of automation, we triggered messaging, and based on actions taken by users, we triggered the next action. So you received the email, opened, not opened, the next action happens. I bounce you a second email, or I bounce you onto social and target you on social specifically, or I send you a WhatsApp message, or whatever. So we're connecting all these data points together and delivering across channels. So you see the variance of the content. And this is what we delivered over a very short period of time. And unfortunately, this data got refreshed yesterday. So this is not even up to date. But we are talking about very, very minimal media spend here. And that's what I talked to before in terms of media spend efficiency, because we're being very, very specific about who we target and what we say to them and how we drive results. So we've actually, those two numbers at the bottom here have actually gone, well, this one has gone very, just a little bit higher. We're about 26,000 in spend. We've generated store revenue in the space of about 5.5 million over a period of about 4 weeks or so. just by doing sort of, sending the right thing to the right people. But obviously, we've got a whole load of other data as well to represent. So there's so much to win and nothing to lose. There's so much data out there that, again, confirms and demonstrates that personalization drives results. There's a high uplift on sales, revenue, whatever you want when you deliver personalized messages and automated messages and so on and so forth. And just a couple of final thoughts. I think it's 2, not 1. But this is very important again, and this gentleman reminds us of something very important. Digital is the main reason why half of the Fortune 500 companies have disappeared since the year 2000. And when he says digital here, he is basically referring to failure to adopt digital transformation or some sort of digital, some sort of transformation. I sort of dislike referring to it as this digital transformation only. It's much more about marketing transformation and customer experience. And then there's, again, the reason this is all important is because it actually helps you answer a whole load of very, very important questions. So if you've asked these questions to yourselves before, data is the answer. If you'd like to chat, I'm obviously going to be around for a big chunk of the rest of the day, but I can be reached. But these are some of the questions that get answered, right? How do I demonstrate return on investment, return on marketing spend, return on ad spend, and drive real business impact? Again, how will the cookieless world impact my marketing strategy? What role does technology play in my future-ready marketing strategy? What metrics should we be looking at? What are our biggest experiences that are unmet and unchallenged? Thank you very much, and apologies for rambling on.